everyone. So good to see you. So before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territories of the First Nations and Native American peoples. So I know I'm based in Vancouver, which is on the land of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. But you might be somewhere else. I know a lot of you are. So you might be on the land of other nations. So if you'd like, please feel free to write those nation names in the chat now. You can always find them by looking up native land. And that'll tell you which land you're on. And let's always just remember our connection to our siblings in these nations. And let's pray for the day in which we might be with them in right relationship. And we always say this, but especially this week, as we're honoring Truth and Reconciliation Day today, which will be coming up on September 30th here in Canada. So welcome. Welcome to Living Interfaith. Know that the whole of you is welcome. You're not asked to leave who you are in your own homes. Please bring who you are in with you. But what you are asked to remember is that everyone around you has brought who they are in with them as well. And all of goodwill are welcome. And when you're ready, Bruce and Cheryl have a song for us.
Is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come, whoever you are, for you've broken your conscience of vows of leaving, broken your caravan of tears. Come yet again, whoever you are, though you've broken your conscience of vows of tears, broken your caravan of tears. Come yet again, come.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Bruce and Cheryl. So I have a few announcements to share at the beginning. So the first one is at our last service, we celebrated our 5th anniversary. So it's our 5-year anniversary. And the gift for that is wood. So we thought it'd be really fun to organize a little tree sapling planting event. So if anyone would like to, we're still going to pick a day in October. I think we're going to have our council meeting after this, so we can talk about a day then. But if you would like to be involved in that and you just want to make sure it'll work with your schedule, please write in the chat now when will work for you. But we're going to pick a weekend, one day in October, and try to get together and plant some trees together. I think that'd be really lovely. So just let us know. It'd be fun. And we'd supply the trees. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
Yes, and then the next announcement is the annual BC Thanksgiving Food Drive is going to take place now. It starts today and will go through next Sunday, September 24th. So kind of reach out to everyone you know, your family and friends and colleagues and faith communities to provide your local food bank with volunteers or donations. So, and this is leading up to the Thanksgiving season. So you can go here for more details if you're interested in learning more. So I'm going to put that in the chat. And then the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat BC's Youth Association is raising money for Delta Hospital and the Surrey Food Bank. They're going to take part in a Run for Delta event. Originally, it was going to be tomorrow, but then they realized it clashed with the Terry Fox Run, and they didn't want to take away from that. So instead, they pushed it back to next Sunday, September 24th. It'll be at 11 a.m. at the North Delta Track and Field. So you can join them to run or to donate towards their cause. And again, that's for the food bank and the hospital. So I'll put that information in the chat as well. And then you can also join Anishinaabe Ukrainian writer and speaker Patty Krakwek and Punjabi writer and organizer Harshwa Wali. They're going to be gathering on Monday, September 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Massey Art Society. And that'll be to talk about our histories of racist nationalism and forging relational abolitionist futures together. So, and I'll put the information for that event in the chat if anyone would like to join. So those are the announcements I have. Does anyone else have any announcements at this time that they'd like to share? Okay. Well, if you can think of anything later, feel free to let us know. And meanwhile, let's come into prayer. So this is a prayer of repentance and solidarity with Indigenous peoples following Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The part of that prayer. O God, great Spirit and Creator, we praise you for your gifts that surround us, for the gift of the land that gives us food, shelter, and water, for the gift of the sun that gives us warmth and light to all that grows, for the gifts of the moon and stars that you've arranged for your glory, for the gifts of language and culture through which your people praise you and share the most deeply held values you've engraved on their hearts. Come upon us, O divine healer, and open our eyes to the injustices brought against Indigenous peoples, their language, culture, and Canada's Indian residential schools. Give us repentant hearts that ache with sorrow for the violence committed against First Nations families and their children. Give us determined hearts that refuse to stand by when the dignity of our Indigenous siblings is trampled. And give us healing hearts that beat to defend and honor our Indigenous neighbors, their language and way of life. Give us flaming hearts that burn with love for you, who come to us in every human face, in every language and culture, and in every gift of creation. Amen. And now Rachel has a prayer for us.
So this is a part of a prayer written by Darcy Litch. Holy One, creator of all that is, seen and unseen, of story and of song, of heartbeat and of tears, of bodies, souls, voices, and all relations. You are the God of all truth and the way of all reconciliation. Come upon us, O divine healer, and open our eyes to the injustices brought against the Indigenous peoples of this land, their languages and cultures. May you be known for healing and wholeness rather than being blamed for abuses that were brought about by human weaknesses and hostility. Make us people of integrity and bearers of hope, that we may commit to restoring relationships and to journeying together as non-Indigenous and Indigenous brothers and sisters to a place of peace in you, where every tear will be wiped away and every sorrow turned to joy. Give us one heart and one mind to walk together in the love and strength of your Spirit, in truth, reconciliation, and peace.
Thank you. And now feel free to unmute yourselves and we'll offer one another a sign of peace. So peace, everyone. It's so good to be with you this morning.
Peace.
Peace unto
Salam.
all.
Peace unto you.
Peace.
Peace be with you all.
Peace, everyone.
Peace.
Peace, everyone.
My friends.
Everyone.
Peace.
Everyone. Peace.
Also shalom to those celebrating Rosh Hashanah.
Peace, everyone, and be blessed.
Peace, Paul G. It's 1 a.m. in the morning for Paul G in Singapore. So big peace to you, Paul G. So happy to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And now when you're ready, Bruce and Cheryl have another song for us.
We are circling, circling together. We are singing, singing our hearts on. This is family, this is unity, this is celebration, this is sacred. We are spiraling, spiraling together, onward, inward, creature to creation, holy mystery, mother, childbirth. This is Mother Nature, this is sacred. harmony. This is community. This is celebration. This is sacred. We are circling, circling together. We are singing, singing our song. This is family. This is unity. This is celebration. This is sacred. This is sacred. This is sacred.
Beautiful. Thank you. Now, let's join together in our joint affirmation. Would someone else like to read this? Yes, Rebecca, if you just unmute yourself. Or you're still muted. Here, I put ask to unmute. Did that work? Oh, you're still muted. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not working. Would anyone else like to read it? Yeah, Doralee.
All right. Join affirmation. We come together in peace. We sing together in joy and with love. We worship together in one house, a house with names beyond number. Our paths are many, our beliefs are as leaves, and the tree that we cleave to is nourished by the light of compassion, justice, and mutual respect. May our lives, our beliefs, and our actions help to bring about the world of love we all seek, and let it begin here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And now is when we take some time to pray in our own homes and in our own ways. As always, there are so many people and causes that need our prayers. But as I'm sure you all know, last week there was a big earthquake in Morocco, about 70 kilometers outside Marrakesh. And they're estimating it killed around 3,000 people. It was just completely devastating, devastated lots of historic buildings, hundreds of homes, injured thousands and thousands of people. And then I was reading the news this morning, and there was a mass flood in Libya. They had lots of rainfall, and the flooding destroyed 2 dams, and it wiped through 3 cities. And they're estimating right now that it's killed 11,000 people in Libya, but they expect it'll actually be up to around 20,000 once they're able to find everybody. So it's just been completely devastating. And the 2 places where these happened, the earthquake and the flood, are only about 2,000 kilometers away from one another. So to just have these bordering countries that are experiencing such devastation, it's just unimaginable. So if we could take some time right now to pray for those in Morocco and Libya and all those still searching for their family members. Let's take some time. When you're ready, Bruce and Cheryl have a song for us.
Way ho, way ho, way hi, ya, way ho, way ho, way ho, way hi, ya, 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 way ho. Way high, way ho. Way ho, way ho, way high, way ho. Way ho, way ho, way high, way ho. 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 Way ho, way ho, way high, way ho. Way ho, way ho, way high, way ho. 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 Way high, way ho.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So I'm going to put our donation page in the chat. So many of you already donate each month to support us and whenever you can. And we're so grateful for all you're doing to support us. Right now, the extra money is going to go to buying little tree saplings, which I think is always a good use of money. So it's very sweet for our anniversary. And yes, and we're just so grateful for all that you bring in. And I just especially want to lift up Rachel right now. Rachel's been carrying the sanctuary for the last several months, almost entirely by herself. And I'm just so grateful to Rachel. So for all she brings. So please know that the donations you give us go to support Rachel, who is fantastic. So many thanks to her. And now when you're ready, Bruce and Cheryl have another song for us.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Thank you so much. So it sounds like something came up for our speaker. So unfortunately, she can't be present. They can't be present with us today. But instead, Rachel did some digging, and we're going to show a film from YouTube by the speaker Tamara Bernard. Tamara is from Lake Nipigon, specifically Kiasheke Zaaging Anishinaabek, Gull Bay First Nation. She's an experienced educator with a demonstrated history of working in the higher education industry. She has been an Indigenous advocate for over 10 years and carries a wealth of experience and involvement within Indigenous relations across various communities. And she's going to be speaking on the topic of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. So I'm going to share that now. Thank you for finding that, Rachel. and we can talk about it at the end. All right, I'm going to start the sound and then just do a thumbs up if you can hear it.
There are so many important women in my life. Some of these women are family members, friends, colleagues. I am certain that every single person in this audience today has a woman that they love dearly. It could be their mother, their daughter, their sister, their grandmother, even a colleague. Maybe you're smiling right now because you're thinking about them. Maybe that smile changed into a chuckle because you remember a fond memory that you have with them. Do you feel that right now? All of us are reflecting on love. That love, when we close our eyes, when that sun hits our face and it warms our head all the way through our body. I encourage you all to hold on to that today because that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what is missing in society today. There is a lack of love and respect for our murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls in Canada. I am not saying that there is not love. I am not saying there's opposite emotions of love towards these women, but it can be greater, much greater. I am hoping today, with the love that we've just built together by reflecting on the women and girls that we love in our lives, will encourage you to see through a new lens and light how beautiful these women are. The beautiful truth, the hidden reality. But first, Bojo, Ani, Tamara Anishinaabek, Parbear clan from Gull Bay First Nation. I am an Indigenous woman that currently is challenged every day living with the intergenerational trauma of the Canadian residential school legacy, and as well as one of my family members being taken and listed with our stolen sisters. I share this because I live in this fast-paced society that is so disconnected to the land, very academically focused, very career-driven, and I'm walking it wearing a moccasin on one foot and a high heel on the other, doing my best to maintain a balance. So today when I'm speaking with you, I hope you can see how two worldviews are being weaved together to show the beautiful resiliency and strength of Indigenous women and girls living here in the physical world and in the spiritual world. I want to share that I use the term Indigenous to acknowledge all the women and girls that are status and non-status. And this is very important because the representation that we're using today in our Canadian society for our stolen sisters is based on a statistic of status women that are First Nation, Inuit, or Métis. We need to acknowledge a part of honoring them is the history of enfranchisement, where an Indigenous woman, when she married a non-status man, lost her status and Aboriginal rights, along with their children. We also need to acknowledge the 60 scoop from 1960s until the 80s, where Indigenous children were taken away from their families and communities and brought into foster care and adoption. They also lost their status and Aboriginal rights. I'm sharing this because there's hundreds of Indigenous people in our nation who are fighting for their identity and their Aboriginal rights and to regain their culture and family ties. And I want you guys to reflect upon because they could be very visible as an Indigenous person. And statistically speaking, an Indigenous woman has higher chances of being targeted of violence compared to a non-Indigenous person in Canada. When a visible Indigenous person who does not have their status go murdered or missing, they're not acknowledged in that representation. They go into a different category. My hope here is to honor all of these women and to show how controlled the actual culture and the representation of these women are. Part of the culture is, that I'm sharing with you today is, and I'm going to share that culture is a trend. And I'm going to share it that I'm going to say that it's perhaps unintentionally this is happening in our country. But the culture of these women in research and in education and textbooks, the media, and other publications, unintentionally perhaps are focusing these women as sex workers, runaways, homeless, substance abusers, and this predominantly happens in British Columbia. With that type of culture that we continue to use and educate our youth, our future 7 generations, by dishonoring our past 7 generations, where does that lead us to? I'm hoping that you will see how this culture of these women reinforce the idea that it's okay to have a lack of moral panic. And I'm saying that because that culture puts the blame back on the women. They're to blame. And when I speak about moral panic, I am not saying we don't have it, but I'm saying that it could be much larger, just like the love, and it starts with love. And when I'm saying it could be much larger, I'm talking about a moral panic that is not in just Indigenous families and communities, or in organizations or agencies led by Indigenous peoples. I'm talking about a greater moral panic that is for both nations, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, to unify together, empower one each other, and feel that same fear. That fear that something we love, our livelihood, our safety is being taken. It is a common, living, moral panic. When it's a common, it becomes a common goal to solve it. It becomes a common action together. Together, we unite, empower, and that's part of the healing, the steps that need to come forth. I share now the culture, the misrepresentation and the statistics. And I shared earlier that my family lives with a legacy of someone being taken. So tonight, as I am honoring my family's case, I'm honoring all women in the spiritual world and on the physical world. My great-grandmother, Jane Bernard, and Doreen Hardy were taken in 1966, right here in the Thunder Bay District, and it's a cold case to this day. Now, we remember the culture. Jane, she was 43 years old. Doreen, she was 18. They were not sex workers. They were not homeless. They were not substance users. They were not runaways, and they were not in British Columbia. And more importantly, this happened in 1966, where our statistics that we use for all our research and education use a representation from 1980 to 2012. So, and they are status, so I'm sharing this to hope for you guys to shift a little and see, what are we educating our society? Because we use that education to guide our research. We use the research that comes out to guide our media. Because this type of representation not only dishonors the women in the spiritual world, but it dishonors the Indigenous women and girls here in the physical world as well. And I say that because with the lack of moral panic in that culture, it begins to question, what is my self-worth? Am I worthy of justice? Is my life as equal as a person who is not Indigenous? Am I worthy to find out why does this keep happening? So as I shared earlier, you know, my great-grandmother Jane, she's listed with the murdered and missing. And then there's my grandma, Irene, who is a survivor of violence. And there's my mother, Christiane, who's a survivor of violence. And then there's me, Tamara, a survivor of violence. That's a lot of energy, a lot of healing, a lot of questioning of my self-worth. Then you see this in the media and in education as well coming at you. It took me 8 years and counting to say, I am worthy of love. I am worthy to be loved. And this is important because so many Indigenous women and youth that I've worked with question their self-worth every day. Every day is a challenge. Every day is an obstacle to live in our society, to wonder if they're going to be safe or if their children are going to be safe. Their stories echo, much like my family echoes. But you know what else? We are more. We are so much more. We are more than murdered and missing. We are language. We are medicine. We are land. We are culture. We are life givers. We are so much more than murdered and missing. I hope today that you think, when you see our sisters in the media, our publications, our research, that you reflect upon how we are more than that. And how the hidden reality, the beauty of us is more. How our voice is more, our stories are more. To create that shift within society that needs, and that starts with love. To generate that moral panic that is needed, to honor the past 7 generations and the future 7 generations. Because if we don't make that shift, I'm scared to know where our humanity is going. I am scared to see where we're going to lead our research and our education. I hope today you truly leave with not only my voice, but the hundreds of voices that I carry with me every day by working with these women and youth. I hope that we could ignite a new way of learning, doing, being, because I am Tamara Bernard, and I am more than murdered and missing. Miigwech.
That was so beautiful, Rachel. Thanks for finding that for us. It's a really important story to hear, perspectives to take in. When you're ready, Bruce and Cheryl have a final song for us, and then I'll do our closing blessing. And then anyone who'd like can stay afterwards and we can talk more about that we just listened to. When you're ready, Bruce and Cheryl.
We've sung this song before. It's a Saskatchewan Cree song. There's a middle section that is all high Cree vocables, which we'll just sing for you, and feel free to just sing along. It's meant to be kind of an improvised singing with the spirit kind of a moment. So you won't see it on the screen. Don't be too confused.
We are all one people. We all come from one creation way on high. We are all one nation under one great sky, you and I. We are all one people. We are all one color in her eyes. We are all one people. We all come from one creation way on high. We are all one nation under one great sky, you and I. We are all one people. We are all one color in his eyes. Way up, hey up, way up, hey up, hey up, way up, way up, way oh, hey, way hey up, hey up, way up, way up, hey up, way up, way up, way oh, hey, way up, yeah, hey, way up, way up, hey up, way up, oh, hey, way up, yeah, oh, hey, oh, hey, yeah, hey, yo. We are all one people. We are all one nation. We are all one color if we try.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's so powerful. In watching this video, I was thinking about a book I read several years ago called Focus by Arthur Miller. It came out in 1945, and it's about anti-Semitism. And the perspective is that it's a novel, and the main character is not Jewish. And he sees the Jewish people around him being rejected for jobs and not allowed to live in various places, and even being attacked in hate crimes. And he always explains to himself that, but that's okay. They're used to it. They had it coming. They're living in such a way that I'm sure they expect this by now. And then the main character is given a pair of glasses that he has to wear. And suddenly by wearing the glasses, he looks Jewish. And all these things start happening to him. And he's rejected for jobs and all these things. And he's finally attacked. And the Jewish people take him in because they see him as one of them. And it's really beautiful. And he realizes in that it isn't true that they're totally different, that when hate crimes happen and when people are attacked and terrible things happen to them, it is not the case that they're used to it. and they're doing things that make them deserve it. And so, of course, this would happen. They're not even going to be fazed by it because this is how they live. But how often do we feel that way? Why is it that 11,000 people died this week in Libya? And I didn't know until I was specifically looking up what news stories I should maybe call attention to this week. I didn't know because in the media, at least here in the West, we don't pay attention to Libya because we don't have a vested interest there. And so just in listening to the author's story and just hearing that, yes, indeed, she is worthy of love. Indigenous women and girls, all peoples are worthy of love. And so the next time we see that someone's gone missing, something terrible has happened, or even we hear the people around us saying things about Indigenous people or other groups, saying, oh, yes, well, they get these things or these things happen. Of course they do. They should expect it. That isn't the case. That's never the case. People are always people. And I hope that we'll treat each other humanely and understand that really we're all in this together and we're all experiencing things in the same way. So let's go forward in that kind of understanding with more compassion, more openness, and more connection to one another this weekend and always, especially leading up to National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Amen.